Hello, I'm Dr. Ashwani Garg, and welcome everyone to Salient Lifestyle Center, whether you're in person or attending online. This is fifth in a series of Food as Medicine. Today we will talk about preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease based on the latest research. So I'm a family physician, also certified in lifestyle medicine from the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine since 2017, and I work for Advent Health. So originally, the brain was thought to be unchangeable, that cells once formed wither away with time, and that was inevitable. But new research shows that the brain is in a constant state of change, with blood vessels growing, cells coming up and dying, connections forming. And the more we exercise our brain, the more this activity happens. And now we know that healthy lifestyle changes can augment this activity. We will discuss these optimal lifestyle changes to promote all the positive changes in the brain. We will talk about neuroplasticity as a concept, learn about the latest research, including lifestyle and physical activity. We will talk about Dean Ornish's latest research that was just published in an Alzheimer's journal. And then we'll talk about how to translate these findings into practical use, because not everyone is able to enroll in Dean Ornish's program. And then lastly, we will talk how to live creation healthy, which is our unique program at Advent Health and Salient Lifestyle Center. So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to transform its shape, adapt, and develop new neuron connections when provided with a stimulus. The stronger the stimulation, the more robust its transformation. And that includes both lifestyle changes as well as stress management and what you do with your brain, including social interactions. So I just want to let the audience here know that this can be an open discussion. So what I'll do is I'll repeat your question for the online audience. Please feel free after each slide to ask me questions as they come up. Any questions so far? Great. Just to diagram it, we are going to focus on the hippocampus, as the hippocampus is part of the limbic system and is involved in the formation of memories, including spatial and navigation. How many people you might know that the first sign of Alzheimer's is getting lost or wandering, right? Which is very dangerous. So damage to the hippocampus can result in amnesia, difficulty forming new memories. Now, the more remote the memories, the more deeply ingrained these might be. So the person with Alzheimer's may not forget very old memories. And then we can see the amygdala is right next to the hippocampus. The amygdala is so important as part of the limbic system that amygdala is involved in the fight or flight response, chronic stress associated with pleasure, fear, even addiction. And it is also important in forming and storing memories. As you may know, chronic stress and the fight or flight response can impair cognitive function as well. So we know that lifestyle plays a direct role in genesis of new nerves and stimulates what's called the microglia. So we're going to go over some vocabulary, and we won't have a quiz afterwards. But these are important terms so that when you talk to friends, neighbors, family, then you can actually use these words and have a sophisticated conversation about the science of neurogenesis. So microglia are the cells surrounding the nerve cells, protectors of the nerve cells that make the new formation of nerves possible. Experiments found that we can delay cognitive decline if a healthy environment is maintained, including healthy physical activity and diet. So just to give you an idea, this is based on a review that is on this page in the journal Curious, published 2020 in September. This link will take you direct to that journal. So this diagram is a figure directly from that journal article. And this was, much before Dr. Ornish's research, but it was published just at the start of Ornish's research. So what the authors also reviewed is that exercise started even in adulthood can reverse age-related reduction of the hippocampus. In other words, reverse age the brain by 1 or 2 years, which is pretty remarkable. Chronic stress causes severe hippocampal damage. As we showed, the amygdala is right next to the hippocampus. Exercise has many mechanisms, hormonal and blood vessel related. So as you know, when someone exercises, the brain receives a large part of the body's blood volume. And so this blood volume nourishes the brain and increases the new blood vessel growth in the brain. So just know we have our arteries, right? So someone may have seen the coronary circulation, including the carotid artery and what's called the circle of Willis. But distant to those large arteries are very small arteries. And those arteries are also in a chronic state of flux and change. So as you may know, atherosclerosis affects these small blood vessels first. So diet and exercise can affect what's called neurogenesis and neuroplasticity that we just talked about. So I'm going to enlarge this a little bit, but before I do, you should know these terms. Vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF in other words. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. So when you say exercise increases BDNF, then you can explain to friends, family, children, parents, aunts, uncles what that means. BDGF, brain-derived growth factor, and IL, interleukin, which signals with chronic inflammation. So just to give you an illustration, this shows two things: physical activity, exercise, as well as healthy diet. Look how she's surrounded by plants, vegetables, fruits. So these increase BDNF, vascular endothelial growth factor, orexin, increase endocannabinoids, and microbe diversity. We know now how the gut is related to the brain. And so down the line, you can see that less depression also improves these changes, improves formation of brain cells neurogenesis. And then on the other hand, stress can decrease these same hormones and result in detriment to the brain. And then down below, you can see the opposite, how physical inactivity, fast food, processed food, we'll say ultra-processed food, all have a negative effect on the brain, including the microbiome, and a decrease in antioxidants to the brain. So our body is in a constant state of inflammation, and we need each and every antioxidant that we can get. So what if we flood our brain with those antioxidants? Other points in that same article that were made is a study showed that women who were physically active in their teens showed a lower possibility of cognitive impairment in later life. So that's why early physical activity is so important, that you can tell the young people in your family. They can be investing in their future health. It's hard for someone 16 years old to think about 50 years later, but it's very important and critical. So they can be investing in future health with physical activity. Now, you may say, my 16-year-old loves gaming. They love to be on the computer. Well, guess what? In Illinois, high school sports now include esports. And guess what's required in those esports is physical training. So we had a discussion about esports at my children's school. And what was revealed is anyone in esports has to be subject to the same level of physical training as any other athlete. So whether someone plays football, soccer, tennis, they all have to go to the gym the same way. So my own children are involved in martial arts, which is great because it actually connects the two parts of the brain, because it's almost like dance where they have to remember the forms, and then physical exertion. Sit-ups and push-ups are usually part of each workout. And then also morality, behaving well is part of it. So it doesn't matter. A lot of adults these days love pickleball, and it's a wonderful activity to play to increase physical activity. The key is to make a plan and to stick with it. The 4 aspects of physical exercise are frequency, intensity, timing, and type of activity. So if you're looking for an exercise prescription, you can write it yourself or get the help of a physical activity professional, whether it might be a physical therapist, physician, or exercise physiologist. Just remember those 4 characteristics. Oh, sure. Frequency, how frequently you do exercise. Intensity, how intense the exercise is. So for example, we use a measurement called METs, metabolic equivalence for the exercise. Timing, so when someone does it, whether it's morning or evening, how many times a week. And then type. Type can be a particular sport or a particular activity. Everyone is different, differently abled as well, and the exercise type should be customized to that person. It's not common for physicians to write exercise prescriptions, but maybe if more people asked, then they would be forced to take some courses in lifestyle medicine and learn how to. So just know there is a lifestyle medicine handbook that's for health professionals from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It's now in the 2nd edition. The primary author is Beth Freitz. And if you're looking for a Christmas gift for the doctor, they don't need any more candy, donuts, treats, cookies. Think about this book, because this may change their lives. And also a link to American College of Lifestyle Medicine's free Food as Medicine course, which is still available. American College invested millions and millions of dollars in that course to disseminate it. And all of us have to do continuing medical education. I have to do 50 hours every year, and a large part of mine is lifestyle. So the other interesting findings in this article, even before Dean Ornish published his article on Alzheimer's dementia, is that saturated fat showed a direct impairment in learning and memory in an animal study. So they had these mice do these tasks, and they found that they made errors that were compounded when intellectually challenged with high memory loads with increased saturated fat. Fast foods cause a sudden negative impact on cognitive skills. So, that's so important to get out all of those. But if you watch TV, what do you see most commonly, even on news media like CNN? Yes. Coffee? Yes, but what I was thinking is, what kind of food advertisements do you see? Do you see advertisements for carrots and broccoli and spinach? Do you see Popeye? No, not anymore. That was something from the 1930s. You see fast food, processed food, treats, convenience foods, and those things that are unhealthy for us, including coffee, yes. And then what else do you see as a remedy to all the diseases caused by those foods? All the pharmaceuticals you see. So one has a correlation to the other, and it's very rare that a news channel will do lifestyle show. But we can be very happy that CNN had a documentary on reversing Alzheimer's disease. And roughly 12 years ago, guess what else CNN had a documentary on reversing? Anyone remember 2012?
The last heart attack in America.
The last heart attack. Yeah, CNN, Sanjay Gupta, the last heart attack. So I have to give Dr. Sanjay Gupta so much credit for putting these forward. That's how I made my lifestyle changes. Seeing that, and the same people that were on the movie Forks Over Knives, which was around that time as well. A lot of people that I know watched forks over knives and transformed. I watched CNN's documentary first. So the key is to know that we're not talking about effects down the line, 10 years later, 15 years later. We're talking about immediate effects on the brain from fast foods, processed food, over-processed foods, and saturated fat. Now, can anyone tell me what are the kinds of foods that have high saturated fat?
Animal products?
And yes, animal products have a lot of saturated fats. And what about fish? What about fish? Someone might say, oh, fish have healthy fats. And what about olive oil?
Olive oil's a good one, right? Unsaturated?
So what's interesting, there is a lot of saturated fat in olive oil. There's a lot of saturated fat even in seafood. So, that the beneficial effects cancel out, and on the whole, eating more olive oil and fish has not been shown to reverse cognitive decline. We can say now the only study that has been shown to reverse heart disease, to reverse cognitive decline, the only studies were with the whole food plant-based diet. And what's interesting is even the Mediterranean diet studies did not show disease reversal. They did not show a mortality benefit. However, if someone tells you about Mediterranean diet, you can point them to the pro-vegetarian analysis of the Mediterranean diet, the Predimed study, which showed the more plant foods were in the diet, mortality was reduced, which means less deaths. So interestingly, even in the Predimed study, it wasn't Mediterranean diet that saved lives. It was the plant-based aspects of Mediterranean diet. So we'll discuss exercise now. Exercise has so many effects on the brain, a lot of hormonal effects. And one thing about exercise is you inhibit cell death. Anyone know what promotes cell death? What one substance people have very regularly promotes cell death? Any guesses?
Coffee?
Actually, it is alcohol. Alcohol has a direct effect. So an experiment in the elderly found that 60 minutes of exercise improves information processing, prevents atrophy of the hippocampus, and actually increases the volume of the hippocampus. You can see brain images, and you'll see increased volume. This was pretty shocking to me because as we learned long ago, that we thought there's no way to improve the brain, that we're on a constant state of decay after a certain age. Imagine that you can improve. Now the dose matters, right? If you give a little bit of dose, there might be a little bit of benefit. But we know that 60 minutes plus is the best. So I've seen amazing changes. Never doubt the power of determination. I've seen someone add 5 miles a day, 65-year-old. No matter what, she would go outside and walk 5 miles, no matter what the weather. If it was bad weather, she'd put on the proper jackets and head coverings and still go outside. So the effect on her that I saw, tremendous mental health benefit, happiness, and brain function from that. So there's an old saying that walking is man's best medicine, and it holds true. The only thing is duration matters. So walking is medium activity, so the duration has to be longer. With more intense activity, like let's say 30 minutes of very intense activity, can equal 60 minutes of moderate activity. So remember I said frequency, intensity, timing, and type are what matters with respect to exercise. So cognitive loss, behavioral changes are the most common. As you know, you've probably heard of the word angry old man, right? And that people become, with short fuse and, kind of mean sometimes. And you can reverse these with exercise and delay them. So as we said, longer duration and higher intensity results in greater change. Ideally, it's both, but if it can't be both, then it can be more intense. So just for example, so may I ask you, How can you increase the intensity of walking?
Swing your arms.
Swing your arms, and one way is to carry 2-pound weight in each arm. That increases intensity and calorie burn, right? What else?
Wear ankle weights.
Ankle weights is a great idea again. Any others? Faster, increase what? Increase the speed, right? So there's so many ways. And again, everyone has different abilities. If someone does not have function of the legs, there's something called an ergometer at the gym, which means it's a cycle that you use your arms for. And for someone who loves weight training, there's circuit training, which means doing a series of exercises in a row and doing one after the other. So many forms of exercise are there. And we'll go over what Dean Ornish had as part of his study. This is the brand new article published, 2024, Intensive Lifestyle Changes and Mild Cognitive Impairment or Early Dementia from Alzheimer's disease. This was the first randomized and controlled trial to determine if intensive lifestyle changes may be beneficial for mild cognitive impairment or early dementia. Randomized and controlled trial means you match the experimental group and the control group. And what they did to entice the control group, they offered them the same 20-week program as the experimental group after they were done with the 20-week observation period. So these were 51 Alzheimer's patients matched with an equal number of patients, that 51 Alzheimer's patients, and between them, the groups were matched with the intervention and without the intervention. And they did 20 weeks. And if you think about it, 20 weeks is nothing. So you can't show a big effect in any drug trial with 20 weeks. It really has to be 2 years. But they were limited. They originally intended to study 100 patients. But because of COVID-19, it was 2020, because of budget constraints, this is all they were able to do. And even with the small numbers, showed a tremendous benefit in that significant differences in cognitive tests, improvement in cognition and function, and interestingly, the control group worsened in all of the 4 cognitive tests within 20 weeks, which is a very short time. So has anyone known an Alzheimer's person with Alzheimer's and how rapidly things deteriorated? Anyone know someone? Yes, can you tell me a little more about it? And I'll repeat it.
My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it seemed like she rapidly declined in 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So your mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and you saw a rapid decline only within 6 weeks.
Yeah, she lived a year, but she had even contractures through her joints, and towards the end she wasn't able to eat.
Yeah, so she lived for a year and she had contractures in the joints. So she was not able to eat towards the end, yeah. So people lose their own abilities and they become dependent, right, to swallow as well. And social abilities, they don't remember their own family members. So it is pretty shocking what Alzheimer's can end up as. The key is, according to the study, to diagnose someone in early stages where we can make a difference. Because in the late stages, the drug treatments are pretty miserable. You know, one of the brand new Alzheimer's drugs that you'll see in that documentary can cause brain swelling and severe side effects, and costs about, I think, $30,000. And the effects are very minimal as far as the effects. And then this ratio, A beta 4240, of this biomarker of Alzheimer's disease, even improved in the experimental group and worsened in the other group. And then microbiome, the gut, improved in the experimental group and actually worsened in the other group. So just to give you the details, there are no secrets. The nice thing is I have the actual published study, And I can tell you exactly what supplements they used and what they did. Because in every research study, they are required to list detailed methods. And sometimes in research studies, you have to go to a supplement to read the details. So the nice thing is we have it all laid out. So what the diet is, whole food, minimally processed, plant-based / vegan diet. Now, plant-based is usually vegan, but vegan is not necessarily plant-based, just remember that. So this was whole food, minimally processed, high in complex carbohydrates. You know, carb is a 4-letter word these days, but to qualify, which carbohydrates? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, soy, seeds, and nuts. And it was low in harmful fats, sweeteners, and refined carbohydrates. That's the difference between vegan and plant-based. So what they did is they delivered the meals to all the participants to make sure that they had compliance. They didn't want to leave it up to chance. They did everything they did to get the best results possible, because when you have small numbers, you have to be meticulous. I'm sorry, yeah, small numbers, you have to be exact. So when they did the meals, they did them with about 14 to 18% fat. Now, just to compare, typical American diet is about 40% fat. And interestingly, the Heart Association considers low fat as 30%. This was really what they call even below the very low fat diet that the Heart Association sets out. 16 to 18% protein, and if you calculate, you can actually calculate each calorie is 4 grams of protein per calorie. So let's say you have 2,000 calories, and 20% of it would be 400 calories, and grams of protein would be 100. So as you can see, it's more than adequate protein in a full calorie diet. Now, people don't necessarily eat 2,000 calories, and there's where the problem comes in. And they made sure that there was adequate protein in the foods, plant-based protein, and then 63 to 68% complex carbohydrate. Typical American diet is very high in refined carbohydrate. There was none in this study. And then there were supplements. So, you know, and I have, after the talk, I will show you. I just have a few supplements to show you. Omega-3 with curcumin. There is one type of supplement. They actually reported the brand used. Because previous studies have shown that omega-3 resulted in 60% lower risk of Alzheimer's. Curcumin targets inflammatory and antioxidant pathways. So in the Indian population, curcumin is very common. So here's the spiced turmeric. We buy it, you know, in big quantities. We use it at least twice a day. And curcumin targets the inflammatory and antioxidant pathways, as well as directly improves the mechanism of Alzheimer's, amyloid plaque aggregation. And then also, curcumin or turmeric improves the brain's ability to utilize the omega-3. DHA conversion in the brain is improved with curcumin. And then there was a multivitamin supplement. They said which one? Coenzyme Q10, vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams, vitamin B12, 500 milligrams. A lot of people are deficient that I check, especially seniors. As well as magnesium L-threonate, lion's mane, which is a type of mushroom, and a probiotic, 1 a day. Now, did these supplements by themselves improve Alzheimer's? Wouldn't it be easier just take a few tablets? No, they don't. You know, there's no randomized controlled study showing these supplements improve. But what they did was they just incorporated all the best supplements that they could to improve the results of the study. And then exercise was defined as walking 30 minutes a day, in addition to strength training 3 times a week with an exercise physiologist. Now, there are exercise physiologists that are available to help you via Zoom. I know someone at North Central College, for example, who has a private practice and helps people. And then stress management with meditation, gentle yoga, stretching, progressive muscle relaxation, which is a great relaxation exercise, breathing exercises, and guided imagery for 1 hour a day. And there were online meditations available to everyone, and everyone was encouraged to get adequate sleep. So you can see stress management, very large part of this, and the reason for that is the amygdala and hippocampus. And then group support. So in our Creation Life program, you can see some of the pillars in here, interpersonal relationships. 1 hour, 3 days a week, supervised with a licensed mental health professional. There was a book with memory exercises. What happens in someone who's starting to lose some of their memory? A lot of tremendous stress. And positive interactions and social support can boost their morale and directly improve their brain function. So interestingly, there was 4-hour sessions 3 times a week. This was, just remember, this started in the heat of the pandemic in 2020. People were often lonely and depressed, and they didn't have any social interaction. So this was so useful to these participants. So the 4 hours included 1 hour of supervised exercise, 1 hour of stress management, 1 hour of support group, and 1 hour lecture on lifestyle. So this is just an example of one of the tests that they did called the Clinical Dementia Rating Scale. And you can see in the intervention group, in the control group, the dementia scale went up, and then in the experimental group, dementia scale went down. And then this is another scale, which is called the ADAS-COG, Alzheimer's Disease Assessment Scale. In the control group, the score went up. In the intervention group, the score went down. These graphs are directly inside the study. The study is available publicly. Even if you don't understand the study, I would encourage anyone with a concern about family member to print this out, give it to the physician. It doesn't cost anything to do that. Physicians need to know, we need to spread the word far and wide. Now, interestingly, I went to Alzheimer's Association website. I didn't see any of this on their website yet. But you can actually email Alzheimer's Disease Association, alz.org, and you could say, hey, why aren't you telling people about this study? Why aren't you telling people to watch the documentary? It's a good question. They do talk about pharmaceuticals a lot, but the pharmaceuticals, if you look at the documentary, are fairly disappointing in their results. And then this was really interesting, microbiome change. Several groups of microbes increased only in the intervention group, and those were the same ones that were previously shown to decrease Alzheimer's risk in other studies. So just to give you the names, there's 3 that were identified. The first one increases GABA production. Now, GABA is inside one of the Alzheimer's drugs that improves Alzheimer's. The Eubacterium physicatina, protective factor in Alzheimer's disease. Prevotella and Taurisibacter are associated with decreased serotonin. So these are unfavorable microbes. These decreased in the intervention group. And we can see the opposite changes in the control group. So what other biomarkers improved? Every single measure of health that they tested, including hemoglobin A1C, insulin levels, LDL levels, beta-hydroxybutyrate levels, and a lot of these other markers, including C-peptide, which is a marker of inflammation, greatly improved. C-peptide was greatly improved. Telomere length, which is associated with longevity, increased in the intervention group. Previously, Dean Ornish has shown that telomere length is increased with healthy lifestyle change. So what that means, anti-aging. And you'll see in that documentary the videos of the participants and how they looked vibrant even 5 years after. So because Sanjay Gupta followed some of these people for 5 years, even though the study was only 20 weeks, there is a correlation in the amount of lifestyle change and the degree of change in the biomarkers. So this is absolutely something we look for in drug studies. Does higher dose improve the result? So we can say confidently that higher dose of lifestyle improves the result even more. And also these test results that I showed you, the degree of lifestyle change correlated with the degree of the brain testing. So how do we put this knowledge into practice? So I'll give you some ideas of practical resources I have, gathered together, and also aligning it with what we do at Salient Lifestyle Center, because what we're doing is not so different from Dean Ornish. So my suggestion is create a 4-week plan of change, implementing one of those aspects at a time, which can be sign up for PCRM's Kickstart, try a new recipe every day. And these are a couple of books that you might find useful. So I'll show one resource, which is called Eat Plants, Live Whole by Dr. Guthrie. This book is called The Power Foods Diet by Dr. Neil Barnard, which is a whole food plant-based approach to health. This book is called Dr. Neil Barnard's Cookbook for Reversing Diabetes. So diabetes-friendly recipes are also Alzheimer's disease-friendly because they're lower glycemic, they have whole foods, complex carbohydrates, and lots of fruits and vegetables and antioxidants. For exercise, my suggestion, start with 1 hour 3 times per week and increase to 5 times per week. That is a lot. I know it's a lot. But someone can start with low intensity and increase the intensity over time as they become confident. It may take 3 months to build up to the full level, but my suggestion is set aside 3 hours per week. Now, if someone does half an hour 6 times a week, that's okay too. If someone does 15 minutes twice a day, 6 times per week, that's okay also. The key is to decide what your own level is that you're able to start with, but you want to end with as much as you can. As far as mindfulness, I will show you a video about trusting in God. Jesus Christ said, "My yoke is easy." Now, Dean Ornish called it yoga. Now, the word yog in Sanskrit is derived from the word yoke. The thing to know is you can honor your spirituality and religion and accomplish the goal of stress management. Now, Dean Ornish, he was inspired by an Indian guru, but we can be inspired by biblical principles. And just know there is modification. So the Bible does discuss meditation. You can meditate on the words of God. And as far as yoga, there are modifications to yoga routines that incorporate biblical principles. So for example, one is called Praise Moves. And then you can go to YouTube, search for biblical yoga. You will find that on YouTube. Several routines that incorporate the words of the Bible. So for example, sun salutation, S-U-N, becomes sun, S-O-N salutation. So any questions about modifying the practices so far? Does that sound reasonable to you? Yeah, absolutely. It can be done. For sleep, my suggestion for anyone who has insomnia, work on that immediately. The app to download is VA's Insomnia Coach Mobile. So just search the App Store for Insomnia Coach Mobile. It will help directly. And then I would say encourage anyone to get tested for sleep disorders. Sleep apnea is fairly common, and it often goes undiagnosed until someone is older. And then form interpersonal relationships, because they kind of broke apart in 2020, and many people to this day have not reformed those. You know, I've seen people are very distant from each other. So here's a video on trusting in God I will play. Let's 1 second. Okay, I think we got it now. Just 1 second here. Oh, you know what? I will play it here. Oh, okay. You know what? It's not connected to the internet. That's the issue. Just 1 second. Okay. Do I connect the first one? Okay, great. Okay, we got it now. Okay. There we go.
Are there people in your life whom you trust completely? And do people trust you? And what is your definition of trust? Trust is key to any healthy relationship. It requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to have courage. Trust then is an intentional choice. It's a deliberate action, and a strong foundation is needed between both parties involved. Have you ever been a passenger in a car driven by someone who's just passed their driving test? You may have noticed yourself pressing your foot on an imaginary brake, or maybe checking your seatbelt every couple of minutes. You may have even made the comment, do you see that car up ahead? Or even more casually, wow, there are a lot of brake lights up there. Did you want to reach over and grab that steering wheel when the traffic got a little heavy? Well, using this analogy, let's take a quick look at the difference between faith and trust. You had faith or believed that the driver was capable of driving. After all, they passed their test. But did you trust their driving? Really trusting someone's driving ability usually comes after being a passenger several times. So what about our trust in God? We may believe that God is a powerful being, the creator of the universe, but trusting him means we accept him and turn the wheel completely over to him. If we want to take back control and drive where we want to, our trust in God may not be as strong as we think it is. So how can we continue to build our trust in God? By getting to know him better. And here's some ideas. Read your Bible. Start your day with Bible study or read a devotional that gives you insight into God's character, God's love, and God's grace. Secondly, talk to God. A trusting relationship starts with vulnerable conversation, and prayer, remember, is our direct conversational link to him. Thank him for the many things in your life, and ask him for help making tough choices for wisdom. He wants to hear everything from praises to problems. Talk to him like he is your best friend. And finally, gather with like-minded people. And this doesn't have to mean a church service or some formal meeting somewhere. It could be over coffee with a friend or conversation at lunch. Share your ups and your downs, your stories of faith and your struggles. And your friendships will grow and your trust will be stronger. Remember, God wants a relationship with you. He is a God of love and understanding. He's waiting and ready. Reach out to him today and let him know that you want a relationship with him. Live healthy, live whole. That's creation life.
Yeah, so what if we started each day with the good book, the Holy Word of God? One way I do it is very easy. It is to load the Bible app, and it automatically pops up a new verse every day, and always it's inspirational. And then continuing in the same theme, interpersonal relationships. So just know the title is incorrect, but this video is about interpersonal relationship, the next word.
Think about all the relationships you have. Your friends, your family, your coworkers. Who do you feel closely connected to? Do you have someone that you can call in the middle of the night if you needed something? Having at least one person you can rely on is more than just a good feeling. It's the way we were designed to exist. Simply put, interpersonal relationships are the social connections you have with other people, and these connections are powerful. They have a way of influencing how you feel, how you act, and what choices you make. The people you're connected with have a major impact on who you are and who you become. God knew what he was doing when he said that man should not be alone. He created Eve, a partner for Adam, to share his life with him and to show each other love, give support through the tough times, and experience joyous moments that make life feel rich and fulfilling. But not everyone has someone. Do you know a person who's lonely? Perhaps it's even you. Loneliness and social isolation is a growing trend, especially over recent years. Thanks to technology, we have the ability to communicate like never before, but even though we seem more connected than ever, the reality is we're not, and it is a problem. A recent study shows that more than 1/3 of adults experience feelings of loneliness or feeling socially isolated. So how can you connect with people and nurture those relationships? Well, here are a few tips. First, be present. When you're spending time with someone, put the phone down. In fact, put it away. Focus your attention on the person that you're spending time with. Limiting distraction shows that you care and you value the relationship. Secondly, fill someone's bucket. No, not literally. This just means filling someone's emotional bucket. Tell a friend how much they mean to you, or help someone feel like they belong when you notice they're shy or timid. And this doesn't have to be someone you know. Offer a compliment to a stranger, or simply smile. Kindness goes a long way. And lastly, forgive. Holding on to grudges or resentment can keep you from finding peace. Forgiveness allows you to walk away from the pain. It doesn't justify or excuse what someone may have done to you, but it does loosen its hold on you. Interpersonal relationships are an essential part of living your best life. Surrounding yourself with friends and family can bring feelings of happiness that money cannot buy. Feelings of love, belonging, and support. So today, take a moment and reach out to someone. Thank them for who they are and what they add to your existence. Feel the fullness of life that only healthy relationships can bring. Live healthy, live whole. That's creation life.
So think of ways that you can reach out to people that you haven't spoken to in a while, whether it's family or friends. And it can be by phone, by Zoom, by FaceTime. So we learned during the pandemic with social isolation that we could reach out in many ways. And many people found church services online as well, where they didn't have a connection. The good thing about the place where I work, they have a spiritual care line. And there is this one person that used to be the minister for people and give them communion at home. And now she was isolated. Now there was no one because she was that person for the church. So what I did was I gave her the spiritual care line, and I said, no, they're not pastors, they're not healthcare providers, they're not mental health professionals, but it's someone who works for our company who can give you a few words of encouragement, who can say a prayer for you. So just know there is always someone you can reach out to, whether you might know them or not. But just that interpersonal connection can make a big difference. So Dean Ornish summarizes his plan in eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. The last two are the most difficult to follow, but the thing he showed is that they go together. And if you separate one out, the program may not work because we know biochemical mechanisms by which each of those works. So anyone know the hormone that is involved when you have healthy interpersonal relationships, whether it's a four-legged friend or a human being? And it's the same hormone involved in childbirth and breastfeeding. Anyone know? Oxytocin, absolutely. Oxytocin is the love hormone that many people lack. And whether, again, it's an animal companion, a human companion, some kind of connection, whether it's in person or remote, it can promote oxytocin, which has so many biochemical effects on the body. It is shocking. So the Lifestyle Medicine Handbook has a chapter on each pillar of lifestyle medicine, and it discusses at the chemical level what goes on in the human body. So just remember those four things. Again, eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. And those are four pillars of creation life. So again, just to show you a little bit of creation life, this is the introduction video. These videos are each about 10 minutes each, and they go over a pillar of creation life: choice, rest, environment, activity, trusting in God, interpersonal relationships, positive outlook, and healthy plant-based nutrition.
Living whole is being physically healthy, mentally fit, spiritually connected, and socially content. It's about fulfilling your God-given potential through your unique traits and overcoming challenges along the way. Advent Health expresses this timeless philosophy as creation life. Creation is an acronym representing 8 principles found in the Bible story of creation: choice, rest, environment, activity, trust in God, interpersonal relationships, outlook, and nutrition. National Geographic explorer Dan Buettner, along with a group of scientists, searched the world to find blue zones, places where people live the longest. Their goal was to determine the reasons for their longevity. One of these blue zones is Loma Linda, California, home to the highest concentration of Seventh-day Adventists in North America. Residents there live, on average, as much as 10 years longer than other Americans. They credit those years to practices aligned with the creation life philosophy, celebrating a weekly Sabbath, spending time with friends, choosing an active lifestyle, and eating a plant-based diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and nuts. These creation life principles are changing lives throughout the world, often through the influence of hospitals, churches, and schools. The many resources, classes, media, and curriculum have been translated into more than 10 languages and are designed to teach and inspire people to make small changes that lead to big changes in their lives. Whether you call it a pathway, a framework, a philosophy, or even a journey, Creation Life's timeless biblical principles restore life and help you live whole.
So I want to list some resources for you. And these are all resources that you can share and go to. And there are so many more. I just wanted to list on one page some key resources. One resource I didn't list is written by Dr. Monica Reed, who works for Advent Health, and guess where she is now? Chicago region. She is now the CEO of Advent Health Chicago region. And this book was written long ago, I believe roughly 20 years or so. I will tell you, copyright, copyright 2007, so a long time ago, by Dr. Monica Reed. And in it are plans that someone can follow and directly apply creation life principles to their own lives. And there's 3 levels of plans that someone can follow, and week by week. And also, we give these classes every now and then. If there's a demand, we will start it up again. During the pandemic, we gave Creation Life classes online. We also gave Full Plate Living, which is a very beginner plan for plant-based eating for someone who's, far away from the ideal whole food plant-based diet. But I would encourage you to look into the book, Dr. Monica Reed. There's a lot of resources you can buy from creationlife.com. And also, there's a free newsletter on creationlife.com. You can subscribe to our Salient newsletter. And then lastly, those videos are on YouTube for Creation Life. And then I would encourage you to watch those last few movies. One is Plant-Wise Film, which is Advent Health Film, which follows healthcare professionals at Florida Hospital through their lifestyle changes. You'll see amazing transformations there. It is free to view, and the nice thing is it's about 45 minutes. So for me, as someone who educates healthcare professionals, it is very easy to screen 45 minutes and to have 45 minutes for Q&A and discussion. I've also screened it at the Harold Washington Library in Chicago, and the room was full. Everyone enjoyed it thoroughly and had lots of questions. Then Forks Over Knives, which is actually freely available to you to watch. It shows the power of lifestyle changes. And then CNN Sanjay Gupta's The Last Alzheimer's Patient. I believe it might be uploaded to YouTube, but if you have CNN subscription, you can view it. If you don't have the subscription, you can listen to the broadcast of the whole movie in audio, which is great. And the last one is the Netflix series on Blue Zones. You'll see people putting these principles into practice. So I would love to have your questions. Any questions? And we can discuss a little bit more. Or was it all so complete that there are no questions? So any comments on what you can do tomorrow to put these into practice? Yes. Yes.
I actually have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one is, more recently, computer games, with the phones and stuff seem to be very popular. What are your thoughts on how that can possibly help or hinder Alzheimer's dementia?
So the question was about computer games and apps is it for memory and Alzheimer's? So when I was in medical school, that was just starting out because computer technology was rising to that level. But believe it or not, all the research on all those apps and games has been sorely disappointing. While it's very interesting, there were several apps that came out on brain health, but none of them have been shown to reverse disease. Now, on the other hand, the study has not been done. What if you combine the app with healthy lifestyle change? I think there possibly might be a benefit. Because, okay, so for example, if you go into a temple and it's spotless, right? You'll notice something on the ground or a stain on the wall, right? Whereas if the temple is very messy and dirty, you may not notice the same thing. So in that same way, if someone has a very clean and healthy lifestyle, you may notice some changes with small improvements in that already healthy lifestyle. Whereas if someone has an unhealthful lifestyle, there's a lot of noise that may obscure any small improvements. So I think overall it sounds like a great idea to exercise the brain, but it sounds like maybe we need to establish a baseline of healthy lifestyle before implementing those games. And so what we showed, the last two things we talked about, trusting in God and mindfulness and interpersonal relationships, are the things lacking. Now, if those games can be social, maybe there's a benefit, right? So, for example, with the new technology, you can have your own virtual world and have 3D images. That has not been done yet, but I think it's a wonderful area of future research. Thank you. Sure, yes. Mm-hmm.
I am currently with somebody else watching what we eat for medical reasons. And sometimes there seem to be a lot of foods that at one time had higher levels of all the things that we're not supposed to have. So we read the labels and we try to, we have a certain criteria we try to stay within. Is that a good way to keep track of things? Like, sometimes I wonder, like, is that a good way to keep track of things? How accurate are they?
So the question was about reading labels and choosing the right foods, right? So one thing to know is on the front of any package, there's all these claims, right? Helps heart disease, low in fat, right? Low in sugar. But the truth is on the back. Now that cannot be falsified, the ingredient list. So the nutritional information is very misleading and can be skewed, right? Something high in fat may be full of healthy fats, for example, right? So the truth is in the ingredients, and the key is to choose those foods with ingredients that are whole food, plant-based, as much as possible. So for example, the low-carb almond cracker, for example, may have a lot of oil and salt, just to give you an example. On the other hand, Mary's Gone Crackers is one brand that is whole food, plant-based. And there are other crackers that are also just simple ingredients. So for example, tiny bit of cornstarch, but mostly seeds and nuts in the cracker. That's a healthy one. So the question is, what are the ingredients? And it's important to know. The problem with modern foods is a lot of them have hidden sugar. There's 5 names for sugar. There's a lot of food chemicals and emulsifiers to change the texture, and which are actually horrible for the microbiome. So the key is to choose those foods that are in the produce aisle that don't require labels. So an apple is an apple, a grape's a grape, right? An orange is an orange. Does that make sense? Whole food plant-based should be the guideline. And the great thing about one of the programs we use, Full Plate Living, is it has a grocery shopping list, right? And the grocery shopping list is based on those foods with the highest amount of fiber and water. So do you have an idea what are the foods with fiber and water? Yeah. And oatmeal has fiber and water because you add water to it, right? So whole grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables, and nuts and seeds in moderation. And then the most important, if there's one thing I would add to Dean Ornish's study, is to incorporate 2 or more tablespoons of flax seeds. Flax seeds are very high in omegas, very beneficial for the hormones. He just took the shortcut and incorporated the pill of omega-3. So just for example, there are plant-based versions of every vitamin available. This one that I have shown is from a company called Vegetology in the UK. And the nice thing is they give you free shipping if you buy a certain amount. And these are very clean omega-3. Now the way I tested is I actually cut one capsule open and it didn't smell rancid. All of the American supplements I tested smelled rancid, unfortunately. So it's just been my experience. Yeah, it was interesting. But supplements are not the end all and be all, but they are part of the Ornish plan for a healthy lifestyle change. Any other questions so far? Yes, Josie.
You started mentioning about the fruits and vegetables. Organic, GMO or non-GMO?
So there's a saying that I heard from one of the plant-based experts. Let me think who it may have been. I can't remember who, but it was that the worst fruits and vegetables are still better than the best animal products. Does that make sense? So yes, of course, it's better to choose clean and organic when possible, but even those non-organic and GMO fruits and vegetables are still beneficial to health. There hasn't been a study showing that they're bad for health. So are organic higher in nutrients and better for you? Yes, they are. Has anyone tasted an organic or farm fresh strawberry versus the ones they sell in the store? What's the difference? Yes, what have you noticed? Flavor is richer, the colors are richer, and it spoils fast as well. So yeah, that's the trade-off you can have. But some vegetables and fruits are better than none. And oftentimes what happens is you go to the grocery store, organic is $5, non-organic is $1. If someone is limited in their means, it's important to buy the $1 one. Thank you. Any other questions so far?
Just a comment.
Yes.
The Environmental Working Group, EWG, has the clean dozen.
Oh, Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen is by Environmental Working Group. It's a good rule of thumb for buying those things that are more important to be organic. For example, berries were found to have more contamination. Now, as far as the contamination, are there things you can do? Yes, you can rinse them all down with a little touch of vinegar and water, and that helps to decontaminate. It also helps to preserve your fruits and vegetables longer. And the trace amounts in those fruits and vegetables have not shown to have a bad clinical outcome. Does that make sense? Yes, they can detect trace amounts in those fruits and vegetables, but we have never shown that at the end it is detrimental to health. Every single study has shown fruits and vegetables matter, more matters. And so the key is to incorporate them so much in your diet that half your plate ends up being fruits and vegetables. That's a good general rule of thumb. And then the remainder is healthy plant protein, which can be tofu, edamame, tempeh, lentils, beans, nuts and seeds for that matter, and then whole grains wherever possible. People have become so afraid of the carbohydrates that they're now putting oatmeal in a bad category, barley in a bad category. That makes no sense. It's just based on this thought. Now, another thing you may have heard is this discussion against seed oils. So the same people that throw seed oils under the bus, which I think is great to not have oil in the diet or to have very minimal, okay? However, what they're saying is, oh, you should have French fries fried in beef tallow. We just showed that saturated fat is bad for brain health. So no, that's not a good conclusion. And in India, the conclusion is, well, you shouldn't have oil, you should have ghee, which is clarified butter. It's butter that's been boiled and boiled and boiled to remove the liquid. And what happens is then the end product is stored on the counter, just like lard, right? It's equivalent chemically. And what happens is the cholesterol gets oxidized, and it's detrimental to health. So no, it doesn't make sense. I wonder whether some of this talk and discussion is just talk based on belief, wrong belief, let's say. And you wonder whether industry may have a role. Because as you know, the cigarette industry thrived on people's confusion. Okay, they said cigarettes don't cause cancer, cigarettes are not addictive. And it's true in the beagle studies where they put beagles in a confined space and they attached a mask and made them inhale smoke. They could not reproduce the same kinds of cancers that were prevalent in humans. Does that mean they don't cause cancer? No, it does not. So a lot of dietary confusion and wrong studies that are published by industry in misleading ways, by egg industry, by dairy industry, by meat industry. So the key is Don't buy into the noise. Read the good research that's been done, clinical interventions. By someone without industry ties, yes, that's the key. Without bias. And a lot of times the bias is not directly shown in the study. It's behind the scenes. So for example, the authors are required to list their biases, right? But it might be the institution may receive funding and then they hire the clinician who did the study. So there's a lot of hidden bias that's embedded in clinical studies. So to take it one step further, if anyone's interested in more, you can go to PubMed and research clinical trials of lifestyle interventions like Dr. Ornish. That Curious Review article has a lot of listings of clinical trials related to brain health. And there are 2 journals nowadays, American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine and the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. Now, the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine requires a subscription or requires a membership to American College of Lifestyle Medicine. However, the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention is free. You just have to subscribe. And the good thing is for each journal issue, there are articles that are attached that explain in plain English what the research showed. So just know, we have to be scientific. We just want to discover the right science. There's a lot of wrong science with sinister aims. Thank you. So people ask, why does my doctor not tell me about this? Well, medical education is predominated by drug research. But what you have to see is the drug research is sorely disappointing when it comes to brain health and Alzheimer's disease. But on the other hand, lifestyle gives people hope. So, for example, Creation Life is based upon, the theme of it is based upon the verse John 10:10. Anyone remember what the verse John 10:10 is in the Bible? So it is about living abundantly, living whole life, and that this is the promise given to us by God. And interestingly, in the books of the Bible, where did the people have the longest lives in the books of the Bible? The beginning, right? So the book of Genesis has people living hundreds of years, right? So what I would say is, interestingly, we can bring it back and maximize our lifespans and also maximize the quality of our lives by following the principles of creation life, which are based in the Bible. Thank you.